So in this video, we're going to be taking a look at mounts and stands. When it comes to video production, there are quite a few things that we want to take to a different level, whether that's lights or cameras. So we're going to start off by taking a look at the tripod. Okay, so taking a look at tripods, there are a lot of different tripods on the market in terms of grade, so what kind of weight they can take, and also what they're manufactured out of. So you have a lot of carbon fiber, a lot of aluminium, and a lot of plastic. So it's kind of up to you in terms of what you want to be filming, what kind of cameras you're filming on, in terms of what tripod you want. But today we're just going to take a look at some of the kind of classic things that you'd find on most tripods. So when it comes to using a tripod, I'd say one of the things that you see in amateur productions is where we get the height wrong on the tripod, or we get the leveling wrong, so it looks slightly squiff. So when it comes to height, the key thing that we want to achieve is that this lens is perfectly at eye level, whether you're interviewing someone directly to camera or if you're looking off camera. The same is true, that we want the lens to be perfectly level. So we can achieve that on any tripod. The mechanisms are often different, whether it's like a screw mechanism or a clamp release, but we just want to make sure that the height of the tripod is level with the eye. So the second thing we want to look at is the leveling of the tripod. So this is the kind of orientation and whether the image looks like it is straight. So certainly on the more high-end tripods, you'll often find a small spirit level bubble just telling you whether the tripod's straight, and this can be a really good place to start, just to kind of take a look at that and assess whether you want to adjust one of the legs so that it's completely straight. What I would say is that it's not gospel, because you need to kind of pay attention to what is actually on the screen and whether the room looks straight. So this is a really good example where we have this kind of straight line along the back, and it might be the case that the spirit bubble is telling us that it's straight, but if this doesn't look straight, then there's kind of no point really. So yeah, it's worth looking down the lens, looking down on the back, and just making sure that your image looks straight as well. So in terms of the control that you have over the tripod, you'll often find different lock points which will control different axis or different kind of movements. So for example, on this tripod here, we can freely move left and right, but we can't move up and down unless we release this, and then we can move it like that. Similarly, we can't go left to right unless we release this one here to be able to move it like that. So yeah, you'll often find quite a few different lock points on the top of a tripod, which will enable you to do different movements depending on how you want to move the tripod. So in terms of other things that release, we have the plate on top, and you'll often have a kind of hard release and then a push-in button at the back. These plates are quite universal in terms of what they screw into, whether you have a GoPro or a fully professional film camera. All of these screw sizes are going to be exactly the same. So that plate can just go on there from the back, and then it locks in, and that's often quite a standard feature of most tripods. And then just thinking about the legs of the tripod, we want to have them fully spread out. So if we have it halfway up, something like that, then we're not going to have that same stability as if the legs are fully spread. In some situations, you might find that you're in a tight spot and you need to have that slight less spread in order to get into something a bit smaller, but in an ideal world, you want to have that fully spread out. And then in terms of where the tripod's positioned, you just want to think about what kind of ground it's on. You'll be surprised that even walking past a tripod, if you have people walking past a tripod, the slight kind of movements that you'd get even off something like a carpet. So yeah, you want it on completely level ground if you can. Also trip hazards, you want to think about any kind of cabling that's running past it, or if a cable's running through it, just making sure that everything's kind of away from the tripod and that the tripod is sturdy before you start shooting. Okay, so now taking a look at light stands, similar kind of rules apply in terms of fully extending the legs, making sure that there's nothing around it. Now in terms of extending these stands, we want to start by extending fully the bits at the bottom, as they're a bit thicker than the thinner bits at the top, which is going to give you more stability. In terms of how the legs work, on most lighting stands, you'll find a release, and then this can just pull up and that will collapse like so. And then you just need to open it again, and then push down, and then it'll open. And then that can just be nice and tight and stable. Obviously, similar to tripods, lighting stands come in various different grades in terms of how much weight they can take. So it's just worth looking up the spec and what kind of things you're going to be putting on top. So in terms of what we find on the top of a lighting stand, if I just pull this one off here, and what we've got on top is called a spigot, and this is kind of like a multifunctional attachment basically. So on the very top we have this screw. This is the exact same screw that we saw on the tripod before, so if you wanted to, you could put a camera on here, but obviously you're not going to get any kind of adjustments in terms of level. But these kind of lights, these LED lights, you'll often find that same screw mount. So if you wanted to, you could just attach that screw directly onto there. But again, you're not getting a lot of flexibility. So often on lights, you'll find something that looks a little bit like this, and then you can just place that on top of the spigot and then screw that in nice and tight. So just to take a look at some of the other rigging options that we have in terms of video production. This here is called a C-stand. It's quite common in really professional shoots. This takes a lot of weight. Really, really big lights you'd use a C-stand for. And you can also put sandbags over the legs, which just enables you to kind of balance that out. These things are really great for kind of over the head shots. So if you wanted to look down on something, these C-stands are really good for that as well. Taking a look at some of these smaller options here, I've got the Manfrotto Magic Arm, and this has basically got quite an industrial clamp, and then that can lock off, and then similar to the C-stand, we can position that so it can look down on something. And this is just a small clamp which I often use for small lights in quite discrete spots. I can just clamp that to something, and again, both of these have got that same universal screw, so you can put a camera on it or you can put a light on it.